First Nations with communities that are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver. That'd be the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we would like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many tutorial keepers of these lands and waters around us in time immemorial. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Could I get someone to move the agenda as approved and circulated? Moved, seconded, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, carried unanimously. Public input. Matters raised here for Council's consideration and should be constructively focused on agenda items only. Please limit comments to 2 minutes and save questions for question period later in the meeting. Any public input? No? Oh, please. Thank you. Any other public input? Seeing none, we'll move on. We have 2 delegations tonight. We have UCI News Cooperative, Janice Clow from the UCI News Cooperative to present regarding a new news cooperative. Welcome. Yeah.
My name is Janice Clew. I was the longest-serving reporter at the Tri-City News before Glacier Media closed in April, along with the New Westminster Record, the Burnaby Now, leaving 600,000 residents without credible and reliable local news services. These closures came in the middle of one of the most important federal elections in Canadian history. The closures meant our reporters were unable to go to the all-candidates meetings. The candidates had fewer options to get their messaging out, and the readers had to scramble because of the lack of fulsome information. Increasingly, throughout North America, we are seeing corporate media pull out of communities and leaving news deserts or news-poor jurisdictions. This is dangerous to democracy. This spring, after Glacier laid off its workers, 4 veteran reporters at our 3 news outlets came together with the Union Cooperative Initiative, or UCI, to organize the first nonprofit news co-op in Western Canada. Our core team, made up of me, Mario Bartel, Teresa McManus, and Cornelia Naylor, immediately got to work to fill the news gap left behind. Using the examples of worker takeovers at Le Soleil in Quebec, as well as Check TV in Victoria, and other nonprofit news groups in the United States, we created a news co-op designed to serve the public's interests, not the corporate owners and shareholders. What does this mean? It means we are launching a newspaper this fall, serving New Westminster, Burnaby, and the Tri-Cities. And we've already launched a fundraising drive with the aim to raise $100,000 in our first phase. Our Save Our Local News campaign has already gained a lot of attention, including recognition from MP Ron McKinnon in the House of Commons, as well as a $5,000 donation from Unifor Canada. Our reporters are anxious to get back on the ground and to cover city and village council meetings, events, businesses, the arts, sports, and to give a voice to the marginalized. People miss the local newspaper. We feel disconnected. And we need a printed format because not everybody has a screen or wants to read the news from a mobile device. Our ask to council is that you allow us the space to tell and share our stories by providing room in your civic areas to distribute the newspaper. We are also open to partnerships and engaging with advertisers. Our team of talented and professionally trained reporters pledges to be impartial, nonpartisan, and independent, to pay our workers properly, and to be a source of pride in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have another, I hope I pronounce this, Essex Town Planning and Corporate, Paul Rosano, to present a project update on the Pinnacle Ridge Hillside rezoning application. Welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council, for the opportunity to speak tonight. This will be very brief, as there is an extensive report being presented to Council tonight by staff. My name is Paul Rosno. I'm the president of Acoustics Town Planning in Vancouver, and we are the urban planners working on the Pinnacle Ridge Hillside application. We've been working closely with village staff since our first reading, which was on September 10th last year, and following reviews by City Council, by Committee of the Whole, by the APC and village staff, we have revised the master plan to address each and every comment that we've received. These include, and you'll see, I think in staff's presentation tonight, adjusting the housing mix and reducing the FAR, addressing wildfire hazard assessment, increasing the size of the active park area to align with the village parks master plan, adjusting the septic design and undertaking hydrogeological and septic groundwater discharge review. We've submitted to staff a financial analysis indicating the long-term benefits of the application to the village, and we have clustered development on less steep slopes, as you'll see in the master plan that's on the screen in front of you. At the subdivision stage, we will be providing detailed topographic survey, arborist reports, geotechnical analyses to ensure that the objectives of the bylaws and policies regarding steep slopes are met. The primary reason for our delegation this evening is to share a key amendment to the plan showing a second access road connecting East Road through Windham Crescent. I think there's a second slide there that shows that in a bubble. By doing so, we meet the two access road requirement. We believe that this second access road could be either a local road or it could be an emergency access road as the village sees fit. We wish to note that this access road would not be required if the Charlotte Road extension, which is in the OCP, was met. Again, the primary purpose of our delegation is to point out this road modification to the plan, as it was something that kind of came up at the very last minute, and I think the staff report that's being presented to council tonight, may not show this final road alignment. Importantly, this amendment does not change the total number of units proposed in our original application from last year. In closing, we would respectfully request City Council support through our second reading tonight. This milestone would build confidence, allowing us to maintain project momentum and meet the village's housing objectives. And we look forward to hearing staff's report on our application tonight. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. We'll now move on to minutes of the regular council meeting held on June 17th. Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Is there any business arising from those minutes? No? Move on. We have a consent agenda. Anybody wish to pull anything from the consent agenda? No? Okay. Could I get someone to move the consent agenda? Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. We're now on to 9A, legislative reports. Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 718-2025, CD6 coach house allowance. Report dated July 18th, 2025 from our planners attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So the purpose of this report is to present the Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 718-2025 for Council's consideration following previous Council direction at the June 10th Council meeting. So this bylaw proposes two key changes to the CD6 Bellaterra zone. First, it would introduce coach houses as a permitted use in the zone. And second, it would align the setback requirements for coach houses with those of the principal dwelling. So the proposed setbacks would be 7.6 meters for the front and rear parcel line setbacks, and 3 meters for the interior and exterior parcel line setbacks. So this adjustment is intended to provide greater flexibility for site planning for coach house placements, particularly on irregularly shaped lots. In addition, staff are bringing forward a draft modification to a Section 219 covenant. The covenant restricts each lot to only one accessory suite. That'd be either a secondary suite or a coach house per lot. The proposed modification would allow up to 2 accessory suites per lot to allow for both the secondary suite and a coach house on the same property, which would be in line with the proposed bylaw. The zoning amendment is consistent with the village's official community plan, and notice of council's intent to waive the public hearing has been issued in accordance with the Local Government Act. As such, council may proceed with giving all 4 readings at tonight's meeting. So the recommendation for council's consideration is that council give first, second, third, and fourth reading to Anmore zoning amendment bylaw number 718, 2025 as presented, and that council approve the draft modification to covenant CA 6043664 to allow up to 2 accessory suites per lot in the CD6 zone. Thank you.
Could I get someone to move that? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Weber.
Yeah, so I guess my main question, are all the other CD zones compliant with this, and this is the last one that you needed to be changed, or?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Here's another question. Would a covenant on a subdivision override zoning? So if there was a covenant, a particular developer didn't want what the zoning allowed, would that override the zoning? So if somebody applied for, what we're talking about here?
Yeah. So typically, Section 219 covenant would have priority over the regulations. It cannot permit something that a zoning permits, but the opposite.
Right, of course. Okay, thanks.
Good. Any other questions? Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Joseph. We'll now move on to, what is this? Sorry. 9B, 2420 Leggett Drive, zoning bylaw amendment, bylaw number 719-2025, report dated July 18th, 2025 from their planner is attached. Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Mayor Buin. So the purpose of this report is to present.
Sorry. I just reading through the report. This proposal is not sort of a black and white related to an existing parameters of the infill policy. So with that, I'm going to be recusing myself to a possible conflict of interest.
I will also recuse. I am neighbor to this as well as working on an existing infill.
Go ahead.
The recommendation is to move the amendment bylaw to the Advisory Planning Commission for input, so we're not actually voting on it today.
Even to move it on today.
Even to move it on?
Yeah. So
Okay.
you're the chair.
Okay. Am I the acting? Okay. Okay, so I guess you're up again, Mr. Joseph.
Thank you, Councilor Trowbridge. So the purpose of this report is to present a summary of the infill development rezoning application for 2420 Leggett Drive and to provide options for council's consideration. The application proposes to rezone and subdivide a 1.3 acre parcel within the RS1 zone into 2 lots under the village's infill development zone. The proposed subdivision will result in a second lot that would be around 2,695 square meters in size. Staff reviewed the application against the eligibility criteria outlined in both the OCP and infill policy. So the parcel has not been created through previous comprehensive development and is subdivided in the past 5 years. It is 1.32 acres in size, so within the required range. Has an average slope under 20%, including proposed building site under 20%, and fronts onto an existing easement with all required infrastructure in place, and has over 50 meters of road frontage, including approximately 84 meters along Leggett Drive and an additional 62 meters on an undeveloped public highway. So the OCP requires 50 meters of highway frontage for the parent lot, which aligns with infill policy number 61 guideline that each infill lot have at least 25 meters of frontage on a public highway. So while the policy doesn't directly address how a lot must be accessed, the 50-meter frontage requirement typically informs both the site access and lot configurations for infill development. In this case, the lot is irregular in shape, and the proposed building site is to the southeast and would be accessed via an existing easement road. So there's also a 667 square meter portion of 2415 Leggett Drive that's positioned east of Leggett Drive and south of the easement on the subject property in question, which is an undeveloped and forested area within a covenant area for watercourse protection. So this portion of 2415 Leggett Drive creates a natural buffer between the proposed new lot and Leggett Drive with over 25 meters of frontage. So staff interpret that the frontage requirement and policy intent are likely met, as the proposed lot would be substantially screened from view and maintain the visual character of the area. However, staff are uncertain if the access to the infill lot through an easement is in alignment with the intent of the OCP infill policy. So regarding parcel configuration, although the policy discourages non-uniform or hooked lots, this shape results from an effort to protect the riparian areas and not an attempt to meet minimum lot size requirements. The proposed lot exceeds the half-acre lot size requirement. The access easement currently serves 2410 Leggett Drive and runs through the subject site. The proposed lot would include this easement area in order to gain access from Leggett Drive. There's also an existing statutory right-of-way in favor of the village over this easement area and a short spur that extends south, which would allow for maintenance and turnaround that is currently unbuilt. The approving officer will review covenants on title to ensure that no future development interferes with this use and require any modifications to the covenant where necessary to allow for the easement. Because this application presents a unique case where the technical requirements appear to be to meet the intent of the policy, staff recommend referring the application to the Advisory Planning Commission for input. Additionally, the property is located within the watercourse protection development permit area, so a wrapper assessment would be required at the subdivision stage. So the recommendation on the table is that council refer Anmore zoning bylaw amendment bylaw number 719/2025 to the Advisory Planning Commission for input on the proposed infill development. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have somebody to move that? Moved, second. Discussion? Councillor Wevering?
Sorry. Just confirming, so that little piece on the corner, that's actually part of 2415. I'm looking at page 86. And that would just be treed, just left alone, or is that part of a riparian area? Because I see a stream, if I look at page 87, there's a bit of a riparian area at the top. Does that continue into what would be called part 9 on page 87?
Yeah, correct. So the part 9, basically that's part of the other property that includes a water course that runs right through it.
Okay.
So there is a covenant on tile for the water course protection,
Okay.
and it's forested.
Okay, that's my only question.
Councillor Richardson?
So I'm quite familiar with this lot because I live very close to it. I realize it's unusual compared to the standard infill lots that we have, been done before. But sort of the key aspect for me is, does it require any additional infrastructure from Anmore to meet it? And it doesn't. You can feed it all the way it goes. I think it makes sense to me, even if it's a little bit unusual. So I'm in support.
Okay, I concur that it doesn't require further infrastructure, so the recommendation is to just refer it. So with that, I'll call the question. Carried unanimously. We can retrieve thank you.
Okay, we're on to 9C, Pinnacle Ridge rezoning application, bylaw number 699-2024, memo dated July 18th from our planner is attached, and a report from our planner as well. Mr. Joseph.
Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'm just going to grab a clicker for a presentation. All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. So I'll just quickly touch on the memo first. So since finalizing the July 22nd Pinnacle Ridge report that you see tonight, the applicant has advised that proposed changes to the road access have changed. So currently the report includes a 6-meter wide emergency access connection from the Windham Crescent to Charlotte Crescent within the site, and notes that the feasibility of a 20-meter wide public road dedication was under review at the time. So of course now you've heard the applicant has now confirmed that the full public right-of-way is feasible from an engineering perspective. This would replace the emergency access and provide a 20-meter wide public road connection to Windham Crescent to Charlotte Crescent with grades not exceeding 15%. So I have the report that doesn't reflect this, but the presentation has been updated to reflect some of these aspects. Okay, so this presentation provides an overview of the Pinnacle Ridge rezoning application, bylaw number 699-2024. So the agenda will cover introduction, purpose, background, site updates, housing mix and Bill 44 implications, proposed road network, and proposed open space and parks and trails, a wildfire hazard assessment, steep slope considerations, potable water systems, considerations on hydrogeological impacts, as well as environmental assessment, and updates to the CD8 zoning regulations, as well as next steps and a recommendation. So the purpose of the report is to provide council with a summary of the updates to the Pinnacle Ridge Hillside Development rezoning application and to outline options for next steps. All right, so the Pinnacle Ridge application was submitted in July 2024. It proposes to rezone 4 parcels, roughly 75 acres, from RS1 to a new comprehensive development zone, CD8. At the September 10th, 2024 regular council meeting, council granted first reading of the zoning amendment bylaw and directed staff to refer the proposal to the Advisory Planning Commission and Committee of the Whole. Committee comments were shared with the applicants, and the applicant has since submitted an addendum to the rezoning application, including technical studies, an updated land use plan, and a revised draft zoning bylaw. Some of the key changes of the land use plan include improved road network and housing alignment to align with the natural hillside topography, an increase in residential area from 53% to 54.1%, an increase in residential increase in single detached dwelling from 51 to 53 units, as well as an increase in semi-detached homes, decrease in semi-detached homes from 46 to 34 units, and an increase in townhomes, including from 172 units to 182 units. So the gross density of the area would be around 269 dwelling units, or roughly 322 dwelling units when you include secondary suites. This would equate to 1.1 lots per acre, or 3.6 units per acre without secondary suites, or 4.29 units per acre when you include secondary suites. So Bill 44 requires municipalities to allow for secondary suites and or coach houses on single-family lots within a restricted zone, which means zones limited to single detached dwellings. All residential lots in Anmore are currently restricted and already permit secondary suites. However, the proposed CD8 zone does not include subzones limited to just single detached dwellings, so it's not considered a restricted zone under the Local Government Act. The bylaw currently does allow for secondary suites in single detached homes, however. This means that up to 53 secondary suites could be added for a total of 322 units in the development. So the initial rezoning proposal did not include emergency access to the site, as the expectation was to achieve the full connection and extension onto North Charlotte Road towards Charlotte Crescent. However, the land use agreements with all property owners to the south could not be secured, So in place of the full extension, and as outlined in the report, a 6-meter wide emergency access route was proposed from Wyndham Crescent to Charlotte Crescent to satisfy the village's subdivision and development control bylaw regulations regarding cul-de-sac road length. The applicant has now confirmed that a dedicated public road right-of-way of 20 meters in width and with a maximum slope of 15% is feasible. So this dedicated road would connect Wyndham Crescent to Charlotte Crescent within the subject site and would provide permanent and unrestricted public access connection that completes the loop through the site, which would enhance the site resiliency for emergency response. This would also eliminate a cul-de-sac length exceedance on Ridge Mountain Drive, which currently measures approximately 870 meters, where 500 meters is the maximum unless emergency access is provided. Ridge Mountain Drive would also connect onto Charlotte Crescent, and North Charlotte Road would remain as a cul-de-sac road. So in terms of emergency access, a 6-meter wide emergency access is proposed connecting Road B and Charlotte Crescent to satisfy the village's cul-de-sac length requirements. The road would also double as a pedestrian shared pathway. The applicant has also proposed an emergency access connection to Hickory Drive in Port Moody. This is not a policy requirement, but it would offer additional emergency access to the site. This access to be secured would require approval from the City of Port Moody. All right, moving on to parks, trails, and open space. The applicant proposes to dedicate 24.3 acres, or roughly 32.5% of the site, as open space. This exceeds the 30% voluntary contribution target for comprehensive developments in the official community plan. The space includes approximately 2.5 acres of integrated trail loops and a priority trailhead that's identified in the park's master plan, connecting to the regional trail system to the east of the site. In addition, a 0.4 hectare neighborhood park is proposed on the eastern portion of the site. Although this is slightly under the 0.5 hectare target identified in the village's park's master plan, staff believe that it substantially meets the park's master plan recommendations for the provision of active and accessible neighborhood parks. Sorry about that. The applicant has submitted a draft wildfire hazard assessment, which recommends fire smart measures, including the inclusion of fire-resistant materials in all buildings, rooftop sprinklers to be incorporated in the housing, as well as a 10-meter defensible space buffers between structures in the forested area. An updated assessment will be required to evaluate the proposed Wyndham Charlotte access dedicated road. The proposed road network should also be recommended to the assessment fire department for input. So the village does not currently have steep slope development permits, which would provide guidelines for development located within steep slopes. However, the village's OCP does outline policies that encourage developments that integrate with the natural features and topography of the site, utilize clustered housing, and minimize impacts to the slopes and discourage large cut and fills, clear cutting, and the extensive use of retaining walls to expand buildable areas. Additionally, the zoning bylaw regulates the height and design of retaining walls that may be used, and the subdivision development control bylaw restricts the creation of lots that cannot meet the minimum lot size requirement without encroaching onto steep slopes that are 30% or greater. The proposed townhomes regulations don't have a minimum lot size, but staff do acknowledge that the intent is to restrict development in areas outside of 30% grading. So most of the site is clustered in areas with gentle slope, with some lots such as 15 to 23, 25 and 26 are located within steep slopes over 30% in grade. Staff did receive a geotechnical review from the applicant's consultant, which confirms that the construction is feasible in areas with slopes up to 40%, provided that detailed grading plans are received, slope stability assessments are completed, and ongoing recommendations are followed as the application progresses. Should council wish to proceed with the proposed site plan, staff recommend that a site-specific steep slope hazard assessment also be completed for construction proposed on slopes exceeding 30%. So water servicing would be provided through extensions of the existing water mains from Ridge Mountain Drive. The applicant is also exploring a water reservoir in the northeast corner of the site. ISL Engineering, Chris Boy, has identified that this reservoir as a critical infrastructure to enhance fire suppression, increase potable water supply, and offer long-term operational resiliency on the site. Water supply to the village is currently supplied through the City of Port Moody and governed under the 2018 Anmore Port Moody Water Supply Agreement. Early consultation with Port Moody is recommended to ensure that the proposed development and infrastructure are in alignment with the regional water system. Type 3 septic systems regulated under Fraser Health are proposed for individual and shared septic. Staff received comments from the applicant's geotechnical consultants, which address the infiltration feasibility of the septic systems and surface and groundwater cumulative impacts. So the comments confirm the feasibility of the proposed septic system, provided that they are properly located on level ground, set back from steep slopes, and supported with sand mounds where necessary. The review states that downslope features such as roadway ditches may intercept any minor septic seepage that may occur, but not all lots may benefit from these mitigation features downslope. Memo from ISL further states that septic proposed near steep slopes would require terracing, setbacks, and additional engineering design, which would be confirmed at subdivision stage to prevent any septic failure and downslope seepage. So as a condition of rezoning, staff would recommend that a detailed hydrogeological impact assessment be completed, including a mitigation plan to provide assurances that downslope properties would not be negatively impacted by the cumulative effects of the development. So environmental overview assessments have been completed for the sites. The assessment included several water courses that have been identified on the site, which would require relocating. Some of the water courses are governed under the Water Sustainability Act and would need authorization as such. So the proposed road onto Windham Crescent also crosses Water Course 5, which lies within the Riparian Protection Development Permit area in the village's OCP. This would require a development permit before construction of the roadway. So as the application proceeds, staff would also recommend that an environmental impact assessment be secured at the rezoning as a rezoning condition. Right. In terms of some of the proposed updates to the bylaw, the proposed CD8 zone has been revised to address committee comments regarding lot sizes and floor area ratio. So the minimum parcel size for single detached dwelling has increased from 700 to 750 square meters. The minimum parcel size for two-family dwellings has increased from 890 square meters to 900 square meters. The minimum parcel width for two-family dwellings has increased from 24 to 25 meters. So townhouses are proposed as strata lots with parcel sizes that would be guided by the comprehensive development plan. So the previously proposed floor area ratios for all housing types were 0.6 for all housing types. The updated FARs are as follows. So 0.45 for single detached dwellings, 0.55 for two-family dwellings, and a 0.6 FAR will remain for townhomes. This is typical for clustered housing types. The maximum building height remains at 11 meters, consistent with other zones in the village, allowing for up to 2 stories to be built. So front and rear setbacks for townhomes have been reduced and are now 2 meters all around. However, a 6-meter front yard setback for garages have been proposed to accommodate vehicle access. The site coverage has remained unchanged for 45% for one and two family dwellings and 60% for townhouses. So no changes have been proposed for the parcel regulations in regard to strata parcel regulations, in regard to off-street parking, private and shared amenity area standards, landscaping standards, and waste collection requirements. Definitions also remain largely the same as the previously proposed bylaw and offer definitions to account for the proposed housing and parcel types, except for the definition of stacked townhouses has changed by deleting the requirement that no more than 2 units share a corridor, steps, or path. So this updated definition would allow for greater building flexibility in building design while still offering individual outdoor access. So staff recommend that council direct staff to initiate consultation with the City of Port Moody regarding the emergency access and water servicing. refer the application to the Saskatchewan Fire Department, and refer it to any relevant village committees for further input. Following these steps, staff would then return with a revised bylaw and summary of referral feedback for council's consideration. Staff recommend that the outlined steps be initiated to ensure a more informed bylaw is brought forward for future readings. So the recommendation on the table tonight is that staff report back to council prior to further consideration of Anmore zoning bylaw, amendment bylaw number 699/2024 on the following considerations, which will be added at your discretion, and that staff to initiate consultation with the city of Port Moody regarding the proposed emergency access onto Hickory Drive and assess any anticipated servicing impacts to ensure alignment with the 2018 Anmore Port Moody water supply agreement, and that staff refer the application to the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department for input on site access and emergency response considerations, and that the application be referred to the following committees as it relates to the mandate of each committee, and that staff report back to council with a summary of referral feedback and intermunicipal consultation findings, along with a revised draft of the zoning amendment bylaw that reflects council input. Thank you.
Can I get someone to move the moved second? I'll now open up for some discussion. Councillor Trowbridge.
Thank you. I'm not 100% sure, comfortable with relative to procedure, but I would like to propose that the memo, which is page 116, 117, that the map within the memo that includes the 20-meter roadbed for Wyndham is the map that we work from. I would like to see the alternate motion be voted on, which is to move forward with the second reading and then all the other things being the same. And the reason for that is I would like to take a bond from the proponent to produce the 20-meter roadbed, but institute the 6-meter emergency roadbed, whatever the proper terms are, so that we have that emergency access, but we also have the future opportunity to turn that into a full width street. So I don't.
We already have a motion on the table right now, which is the preferred motion, which was put forth.
So what does that mean? How do I deal with that if?
I guess I didn't really understand. Could we get some clarity on the Wyndham on this updated map? Just the 6-meter, I didn't really understand the difference between the 6-meter and the 20-meter.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor McEwen. So in the report, it's reflected as 6-meter emergency access off of Wyndham going towards Charlotte Crescent within the site. That's 6-meter emergency access that would be closed off unless it's an emergency environment. But the updated site plan, which you've seen from the Kistics here, and as outlined in my memo, would be a 20-meter road right-of-way, unrestricted access, to act like a normal road. So,
so that's been proven that there's a 20-meter within 15% grades, I guess is what it is.
Correct.
Could be facilitated from Wyndham,
Yes.
Crescent,
Right.
all the way to Charlotte Crescent.
As per the memo. It's in the memo.
yeah.
I've got two memos here. One says that it's not been proven engineered-wise. That was my
Yeah,
concern.
so like, I'll give you, just at the time of writing the report,
Yeah,
we didn't receive an update.
okay.
So,
So I just want clarity.
Yeah.
So that has been proven, the 20-meter road right-of-way from Wyndham to Charlotte has been proven to be engineered possible.
right, I mean, staff haven't reviewed the proposed road in terms of
Okay.
any engineering, but the applicant is confident that it meets the 15% and is,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's just what yeah. So we have a motion on an issue that was moved and seconded. So do we want to have discussion first on that? And then if we want to amend the motion during it, then that's fine.
So what do I do?
Through the chair, if you wish to have discussion and debate on the motion on the table, that is appropriate. It is also appropriate from a procedural standpoint to amend the motion on the floor to include option 2 in the agenda is, I think, what you're referring to, which is on page 137. And essentially, just looking through it, all of the options, everything is the same except for the first portion of the motion on the floor, which is the report back on further considerations, would be amended to the given second reading, which would then need to be amended per attachment 9 and further amended to include the new map, which is page
117.
17 of the agenda. So I either would be appropriate.
Would I move to amend that motion?
Yeah. So I guess the question I have for our corporate secretary is, we have a motion on the floor right now. To change the motion, we're not amending it. We have to vote this motion down. Is that not correct?
Through the chair, any council member can introduce an amendment.
But this is a whole new motion. Is it not? Or
Majority of the motion is similar, as Ms. Ellerick.
It's actually the same.
Yeah.
Everything's the same.
Everything is the same
Oh,
apart
with
from
the
that.
so just
we can
amend?
amend
Okay.
it.
Okay. Okay. So you have an amendment, Councillor Trowbridge.
That's what I would like to
Okay.
amend that motion to the one on 137 that begins with that Anmore bylaw amendment, bylaw number 699-2024 be given second reading as per attachment 9 to the report by the village planner dated July 18, 2025. And all of the rest of that, which is also in the first motion, remains the same.
Okay. Do we have that from the clerk?
Yeah, so the motion to amend would just be to amend the first paragraph to reflect the option 2 on 137 with the addition of the reference to the map on page 117.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
Do I have
you.
someone to second that? Second that. Okay. So now we have a new motion on the floor, which is the go to as amended. So, okay, I'll open up for comments. Councillor Cryer.
I have just one question. Can you explain the addition of the second reading? What is the, I don't know, the pros, the cons? What's the difference of doing everything without it or doing everything with it? Is it just, are they able to go,
The
everything
implications
continue
yeah.
on
Yeah,
without slowing anything down?
yeah, through the chair. Are you thinking about when we swap out the map, the implications to that, or the implications
About giving it second reading. I
about
think.
giving it
Yeah.
a second reading?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the implication of providing additional bylaws. Yeah, so it's essentially building off of the first bylaw. The first bylaw would kind of introduce council to the bylaw. You would have discussions, general discussions, and maybe offer referrals to certain committees. The second reading would basically build on those referral comments as well as any council comments, and you would deliberate further for a reading. Second bylaw also is a legislative requirement that must be met before you can proceed to public hearing. In this case, public hearing is not is prohibited, so that it doesn't matter. So yeah, I mean, essentially, it's building off of the first, and to provide, I guess, a direction to receive input from the public, essentially.
Yeah, I guess I understand the role of second reading in that it triggers a public hearing, but in this case, we don't do a public hearing, so it seems like 1 and 2 could have, well, 2 could just as easily move forward and still do everything concurrently.
Yeah, so again, it builds off of each bylaw reading, and if council are confident that they have all the answers, information, answered, then you could proceed with bylaws also. So it's about the confidence of the bylaw to proceed to the next stage. I don't know if you want to add on to that.
Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So essentially, your first reading of your bylaw is tabling or introduction of the bylaw. This is something that you want to explore further. The second reading, essentially is typically defined as the discussion in principle and essentially the content of the bylaw. Then as you move into third reading, that would be your more final discussion. You still can make amendments prior to third reading, discuss any changes. And then, of course, fourth reading is your approval. So it is a further step and a more, I guess, involved discussion than the initial introduction, but still provides an opportunity for changes to be made before third reading, whether or not a public hearing occurs, if that's helpful.
Yeah, good. Okay. So we're clear. So open up for discussion. Councillor Weber.
Okay, so I had my question answered about the Wyndham connection. I like the 20-meter proper road. It makes a lot more sense to me. Definitely the discussion with Port Moody for emergency access should be, this is an opportunity to connect to Port Moody in an emergency way. I think that absolutely has to go forward. I'm not going to comment on the usable part, but I would like to see it go to the Park Committee for discussion. I'd also like to see it go to the Environment Committee before third reading. Concerned about building anything on anything designated steep slope. I thought sort of the whole idea of this development was to sort of concentrate it onto the buildable area, the better buildable areas. So I'll leave that to staff. It's just a concern I have. So there will be a reservoir as part of this that would be served by the initial, like the pump station on the bottom.
Yeah, correct. And, as per the memo from ISL, it's a critical infrastructure element.
Right.
Yeah, so it'd be something that probably would be required for the site.
Okay. Did I read somewhere that that pump station would need to be upgraded or modified?
Potentially, I don't really have the answer, but I could get that answer if that
Okay.
would be something.
Septic is a concern, but I defer to Fraser Health on that. I would assume we would have sewer pipes in the ground for future connection if that ever happened.
Yeah, I believe that's been indicated by the applicant, but yeah, I would say I would refer that to Chris
Okay.
Boyd for further confirmation.
I think my question about the FAR was answered. Will townhouses have driveways, or are we getting into too much detail at this point? I'm just concerned about parking up there in cars, because it's going to be a car-centric community, so we don't really have a lot of bus service. So, and also I think, there's going to be access to the woods from there. I think recreational hikers and bikers are probably going to want to park up there. So I do see a lot of cars up there. So that's one concern I have. I don't know if you have the answer to this question, but if you look in one of the diagrams, the whole looks like the north, I guess it's the east side of the property, which is the Port Moody side. Is that, could that be developed by Port Moody, or is that off the table for development?
I think a large portion of that is actually Crown land.
Oh, is it Crown land?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
it
So
could
I
be
think the
sold.
limit is where it's already built, and I don't believe it'll be built further.
Okay.
So.
All right. Financial performance, is this going to be positive? Is this infrastructure, the tax base going to take care of this infrastructure, the maintenance over the years? I mean, we know we have a challenge on the steep slope developments. So that was always one of my big concerns for developing anything up there.
Yeah, so the financial assessment indicated a positive outcome.
Okay.
However, it hasn't been reviewed extensively by staff right now because we are at the site planning stage, and those
Okay.
parameters could change. But going into future readings, that'll become more of a focus, and we could get more answers for you.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I have. Thanks.
Anybody else? Councillor Richardson.
Okay, so I'm with Council Reverend here on the Port Moody and the Hickory connection for service. I'm also very interested in the water discussion. I didn't catch that we're going to fill this reservoir with the pump that's currently at the bottom. My understanding, the reservoir would be built right beside the old Hickory Reservoir in Port Moody. And why not just bring the pipe over and we get rid of the pump? Because I don't like pumps per se. So I think there's a bunch of planning that could be done there with water to make Anmore's overall water system more efficient and cheaper to maintain. I like to see it to go to those committees. I'd also like to see it go back to the APC. My discussions with the APC on the first time through is they didn't finish. They wanted a bunch of information. So, we didn't really get anything from them. In reading through the details, there's the 1.1 lots per acre. That to me, is to meet the 1.8 for the CD zone. But it's a bit of a misnomer because you have some huge lots on there that, have 12 or 14 units. The 53 secondary suites disturb me. I think the number of units total should be around 260. Jumping up to 322 is a lot. And I've raised this every time this has come up, including the committee of the whole and everywhere else. I think the floor area ratio should be pegged at 0.3. End of story. I don't think you can have these little 750 meter lots or 750 square meter lots with floor area ratios of 0.45. That is an exceptionally dense structure. Likewise, if you have the townhome development on these massive lots with a floor area ratio of 60 and setbacks of 2 meters, those make for huge buildings. And I tried to understand by going through here, and the only map that even had potentially any information was the septic field map on what the lot size actually are and how they're serviced. I think it's on page 259. I want to know if you have a floor area ratio of 0.6 on some of these lots with the townhouses, how big are those townhouses? Like, I don't think last time I went through this, they were 4,500 square feet, which seemed to be insane to me. I think we should have some restriction on that. So personally, units should be tapped at like 260 or 270, which would be consistent with CD zones as it is with suites. And the floor area ratio to maintain a look and feel that's sort of in the village should be tapped at 0.3. I'm absolutely against this 0.6. There may be a financial reason that they need 0.6, but that should be a discussion into the future as a trade-off or something, because you're giving them, hundreds of thousands, if not a million extra square feet in potential profit. I'm curious to know if the roads, the new roads, are actually going through the green space, or are they independent of the green space? My impression by looking at the maps is it's going through the green space, so it's not actually green space anymore. I have concerns always of cuts like that through pieces like that. And that's pretty much it from my concerns. But to me, the small single-family lots with the high density floor area ratios and the huge floor area ratios for the townhouses, I'm against. I am for all the different types of housing styles. I'm for the townhouses, I'm for the stacked townhouses, I'm all for that. But there is a build out there that seems way too large for what's there and what's the rest of Anmore.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I'm aligned with the consultation with Port Moody regarding Hickory, although if the Wyndham connection goes through, it's my understanding Hickory's not required. Whether that's the case or not, I think having the discussion to find out whether Hickory's viable or not is still worthwhile. Relative to the water supply agreement, I certainly wouldn't want to see I think that's a village issue, an entire village issue. I wouldn't want to see that burden any development. And I'm not speaking specifically about this development. I'm talking about just any development in general. We need to go through that service agreement with Port Moody with the entire village in mind. So it's something that I'd like to see discussion happening with our neighbors outside of even this application. So I'm not trying to change anything. I just think we need to go further with that discussion because there are some uncomfortable clauses in that that we need to address. And we've lost our opportunity for our own water supply, so it'll become increasingly important.
Anything? Okay, a couple things. I guess being being around when Charlotte North was actually named Charlotte North on the premise that it was going to be connected to Charlotte and to access, which is identified in our OCP and also in our roads master plan. I'm glad to see a 20-meter road right away, but I don't know if Wyndham Crescent is actually the place for it. It was always planned to be on Charlotte, and I'm certainly hoping that that could come to fruition. It makes the most sense. It also extracts the most traffic out of the area. It also provides a better, to me, and I noticed one of the points that our planner said that even Wyndham Crescent really doesn't give a secondary access in the case of emergency as it should compared to what Charlotte would. So I'm a little bit concerned about the Charlotte aspect. I'd always thought that it would be part of the hillside development. I'd like to understand a little bit more why it's not. Councillor Richardson already brought about the concerns from the APC. I sat in the meeting. The big concern was the setbacks from house to house, and I think it was about 6 feet between the two houses is all the setbacks. And the concern was, is that really a rural setback in regards to our setting? I have a few more notes here. I really liked the park. I thought the establishing that park in that area was great. I appreciate the proponents for listening, because it was one of the first concerns I had in reference to the parks master plan, which I was part of in its initiation and stuff like that. This area will be tough for young kids to be able to get down the hill to be able to use it. So having I think a 0.5 hectare park is essential up there for them, and a usable park. I think we've already discussed the new water reservoir on the northeast corner of the subject site is being explored. Initially, when this property, and the many reiterations, the water reservoir was supposed to be on the neighboring property, the Cadman property. So that's no longer in effect? It's being done within I guess it's now the Therese property, is that?
Yeah, so I think that option has been explored. However, the applicant has landed on keeping the reservoir within the subject property.
There's still two accesses, though, to the Cadman property?
No, so there's one access to the Cadman property through Road A.
Okay.
Road B cuts off as a cul-de-sac as a previous iteration of the bylaw. There was an iteration that could include a double access, which would actually provide a little bit more development opportunity for the site north, just because it's a steep slope and roads are basically constrained.
So is the neighboring property owner aware of that?
Sorry?
Is the neighboring property owner aware of that?
He is, and he's reached out. Yeah.
Okay. I think the water supply agreement is a big deal, especially with the pressure that Port Moody is going to be put on for Bill 44 in regards to their water thing. So I think that discussion needs to be had as soon as possible. A little bit concerning about lots 26 and lot 7s, about the where you classify your potential for downslope seepage of septics. I am a little bit concerned of putting the septics on these steep slopes. And ISL has talked to that, but that'll be something interesting to that. I also, the overview environmental assessment, because one of the requirements will be that we refer this to the Environment Committee. The applicant proposes to realign portions of watercourse 1, 3, and 5. Is that something they can do, or through provincial consultation?
Correct. Yeah, either it's going to be regulated under the Riparian Areas Protection Regulation or Water Sustainability Act, which will require approvals regardless.
And now, will Mossam Creek be involved in this discussion as well, because it's part of their watershed?
They could be, but I guess we'd have to explore ways for them to.
Would that be something that we would list out in here, or?
Say it again?
Would we list that out as to things to look for future considerations?
Potentially, I guess you can refer to the Mossam Hatchery Creek, or have them come maybe as a delegation, or what have you, to maybe the Environment Committee to sit in. But,
and the last thing I wanted to say was on September 6th, when the first bylaw came, the report stated and was approved that there would also be a bit of a community engagement plan was also approved, giving it first reading. Is that in the works as well, or?
Right. So yeah, no, that was kind of flagged at the committee of the whole. where we got basically a recommendation that we do not proceed with a public engagement plan just because it could interfere with the prohibition of public hearing, where we can't essentially imitate any formality of a public hearing.
Yeah, we had that discussion when this was passed, because again, that was already in place, but there was sort of a conversation that some engagement with the public was going to be warranted, and that was part of the approval when we gave it first reading, so.
Yeah, initially that was a sentiment.
Yeah.
However, we, with further recommendations from legal counsel and such, we've basically ended that we should not pursue a public engagement plan because it could be
Okay.
perceived as a public hearing kind of formal setting.
Yeah. Initially tonight, I was not in favor of moving it to second reading because of the work that still needs to be done here, and I didn't want the perception of this being rushed at all. But from what you're saying, really, second reading, it doesn't really make much difference. The work is still going to get done, so I'm certainly fine on moving it forward. But I do have, I've been asked to put what committees, refer to the following committees, and I hope this is fine. I've got Parks, Environment, Community Engagement, Public Safety, and of course back to the APC. So that would be added on to that as well. And then I would also say that at the top of the recommendation is that the Mossam Creek hatchery be engaged in regards to any of the environmental issues as well. So, okay, with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we now move on to Anmore South status of OCP amendment application update. Report dated July 18th from our Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to provide council with the status of the OCP amendment application process associated with the Anmore South application. So essentially, for just over 2 years ago, Icona Properties applied to amend the OCP in relation to the Anmore South lands, formerly referred to as the IOCO lands, to facilitate a future development for a mixed-use development. Over the course of 2 years, following initial review by staff, several steps taken by council to consider this application, and a comprehensive community engagement plan. A public hearing was scheduled for June 23rd. The public hearing is the opportunity for interested parties to provide their submissions and comments to council in a formal setting. Very close to the public hearing, in fact, less than 2 hours before the public hearing, we received an email from the applicant indicating that they would like to pause their application related to the neighborhood plan. Staff immediately sought clarification, and at about 5:20, 40 minutes before the public hearing, we did get a formal email from the applicant to withdraw. Unfortunately, due to the lack of time that we were given in terms of notice, we were full steam ahead, and folks were not able to be given proper notice by the village. So this report before council this evening is just to formally pull back those recommendations to advance the first and second reading and the public hearing schedule. So the recommendation would be that referral to a public hearing, a Village of Anmore Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 686, 2023 be rescinded, and that first and second reading of Village of Anmore Official Community Plan Amendment Bylaw 686, 2023 be rescinded.
Someone to move that? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We now have, we're now on to no unfinished business. 11A, new business, additional resource request. Report dated July 18th, 2020 from our Chief Administrative Officer. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. The purpose of this report is to seek additional resources to meet legislative requirements with respect to Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act requests. You may recall that in late May, staff brought forward a request for additional resources related to processing the large number and complex nature of FOI requests that the village was receiving. At that time, council approved $20,000. Since then, we were at, I believe, 7 requests at the end of May. We've received an additional 5 requests, most of which are very complex in nature in terms of volume of records. The $20,000 from the initial request has been exhausted in terms of hiring additional consultation resources. Currently, the in-stream requests are being processed in 2 streams. The less complex ones are being processed in-house by several staff members. And when I say less complex, I'm talking probably in the 500-ish or less page range. The more complex ones have been sent out to a consultant, some of which are upwards at this point, near 20,000 pages in response. So this definitely is not something that staff has capacity to, and while we had hoped that the initial funding, would enable us to continue processing these requests, that has not come to fruition, and staff is seeking that recommendation in front of council this evening is that funding for additional corporate office related to support of up to an additional $55,000 be approved to be funded from unrestricted operating surplus for the balance of 2025.
Good. Can someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? I think it's pretty self-explanatory, unfortunately, but Councillor Richardson.
So it always bothers me when we go, but I understand the nature of these things. Is that beyond the cost recovery? Because some of the large ones have cost recovery.
It is definitely well beyond the cost recovery. The cost recovery is very minimal, and the most time-intensive part of the process is typically the review and the redaction of the information, and there is no cost recovery available to the village for that.
Okay, thank you. And then the other part, which I quite liked, is the attached administrative policy 84. There's one change that I would make, because I don't like things that say has his discretion. I think you put a set of procedures and exclusions and you follow them all the time. I think it's a great idea, because my understanding is some of the Freedom of Information requests are very similar, and to just publish the result on our website as suggested here, I think that's a great thing, actually. But I would like, if possible, some of the discretion removed, so it's very clear written which ones are included into the website and which ones are excluded from publishing on the website.
So thank you through the chair. This policy is actually an administrative policy. It's not a council policy, so it's not in front of council for approval this evening. However, we will note that it is consistent with other policies that other municipalities that have similar release policies in place. And as head of FOI, I would make the final decision in consultation with Ms. Guzakara, who is our FOI coordinator. Is that correct? Thank you.
Good, thanks. Seeing no further, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Just quickly move on. Mayor's report. I received quite a bit of correspondence from a Tri-City Dispatch article, which came out on July 14th. It's about the Anmore subdivision wastewater facility flagged by province for 12 environmental violations. So this was regarding Crystal Creek. It was posted in the Tri-City Dispatch. I just wanted to make everybody aware, again, the village has no jurisdiction whatsoever over the jurisdiction over septic systems. We were unaware of these issues. We are following up with the Ministry of Environment, yet details have not been forthright. It's a concern to this council. when the AGE came in, approached us, and we had to deal with that back about 5 years ago. We learned a lot about some of our septic systems and the troubles that they're having. Again, all these systems, this council and every member of this council and staff have been inherited way before the current members. So this is a legacy issue that, again, we're concerned about. I'm a little bit shocked that more coverage of this wasn't in some of our local Anmore conversations, and I think it's Mario's wife's Facebook page as well in the village to express concerns and make sure that these are being maintained. One of the issues, if you read the article, is about the financial, making sure that these are financially viable, putting funding away. This also, I didn't know this as well, that the facility had previously received an advisory in 2018 for similar issues with effluent quality and monitoring and seepage. So there is some issues going on in the village, as this council has said. So I'd suggest you all have a closer look at that. So, and that's all I have for Mayor's report. Council report?
John?
Oh, go ahead, Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I just want to give a brief update on our accessibility report. Thanks to Ms. Elric and Ms. Guzakaras. Did I get it? Okay. I appreciate you putting that as a priority, and we do have a draft accessibility plan, and it's ready to go to the first CC committee in September for review, and then once it's finalized, it'll come to the council table. So thank you for jumping into that right when you had one brief minute. I appreciate it.
Anything else? Councillor Richardson.
So I realize it's been almost a month since the almost public hearing, and I just want to say thank you to all the residents who signed up to participate. Thank you to all the residents who put a lot of thought and consideration into either their support or not support for the Icona plan. I think it was a great effort. And then last thing, this is the summer break, so have a great summer and see you in September.
Thank you. Move on to our Chief Administrative Officer's report.
Thank you. So I just wanted to remind everybody, you may have seen the notices out that we are currently under campfire ban. So please be vigilant throughout the summer. Continue to check updates both on the village website and on the Saskatchewan Volunteer Fire Department website. Call the village, check in. We do have a recorded message whether fires are allowed or not. So please make sure that you are following those rules. Somewhat related to that, the village has now undertaken our new community wildfire resiliency plan project that we received grant funding for. So that is 100% funded from a grant we received from UBCM. So you may see out and about the village our consultants who are working on that project, and we have onboarded an additional staff resource to assist with the project, also funded by the same grant funding. So we're very excited to have that underway and expect that to be complete in the fall, in early fall. And finally, with the hot weather in summer, please also follow and obey the watering restrictions. You know, again, that can change throughout the summer and increase, so we will certainly update the village as appropriate, but we are still currently under water restriction 1 at this moment. That's
Good.
everything.
Thank you. We've got a couple information items. Correspondence dated June 17th from the District of Coldstream regarding modernization of the wastewater regulations, and a Metro Vancouver Board and Brief. Now open up to public question period. We did receive 2 questions from Lynn Burton. Has the village sold lot 20 on the corner of Uplands Drive and Heron Way? I can answer that one, and that's no. Has the village secured a tenant for the retail space? And I'll ask Ms. Elric on that.
Thank you. Through the mayor, we did undergo a request for expression of interest process regarding the lease space, and are sort of in final stages with a tenant and finalizing lease and tenant improvements and that type of thing. So hopefully we will be in the coming weeks able to make an announcement and confirm the tenant.
Perfect, good, good. Yes, please.
Not phone number. Lisa Johnston, 180 Hemlock. The septic that you were just talking about, I did some research on it too. Is there any way for us to find out that it was actually approved and stamped and signed off when it was first built? Because it does talk about 2018, and even prior to that, there's been an ongoing issue. So how do we know it was even right from day one working well?
We wouldn't have issued a building permit if it hadn't been stamped off initially.
I know, I'm hoping, but because it seems to have been an ongoing, right? So,
Yeah, yeah, not with us.
no,
With the-
like there's a management company, that,
Yeah,
right?
Ms. Silver,
okay.
yeah.
That would be something that you could follow up with the Ministry of Environment on. The village currently does have correspondence going back and forth to find out more details, and we certainly will share those when we have them. But as Mayor McEwen said, it would have needed to have been approved at the time, but we're trying to find out sort of what exact measures and
Like, do we know how it
worries
was
are-
even discovered or how it came about? Was somebody walking around and saw a leak? Or
In the
I
article,
don't
it says there
know
was
that.
a regular inspection that they were there, and when they inspected, they looked
Yeah,
at
I
the
saw that
logs and
too.
stuff. But it's
We
35
learned of-
homes.
But
We
it-
learned of it
yeah.
we learned of it in the article.
the same as we did, and that's
Yeah.
why I'm wondering,
Yeah.
because it's not that it was a routine maintenance check on it. It's somebody had to have noticed it and called in type of thing. So could it have been somebody was having their home inspected for a sale and it was discovered innocently, or somebody walking to the lake? Like, you don't have any knowledge of how it was discovered?
No, MOE is fully responsible for that. And then the small septic systems is Fraser Health, and neither one of them consult with us.
They don't, okay,
Yeah,
Yeah.
we find out when you find out.
right, okay, good, thanks.
We are looking into it, though, to try and get some more details.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, and staff. Ramey Coupel, I live on 1017 Ravenswood Drive. A bit of a backstory. Last August, I was involved with a fire in the Dunbar area. It was a condo unit that went up in flames. I happened to have the crane on that site that fell over. I spent about 3 weeks there that evening during the fire, as well as the cleanup. Talking to the fire inspectors, including the fire chief, they feel very strongly that any project that has that much fuel to burn should have some sort of preventative fire suppression during the construction. And I'll add that that evening there were fires that were triggered 1.5 kilometers away, like in Pacific Spirit Park. Also, several blocks, neighbors are putting spot fires out on their homes, their yards. So my question is, will staff and council consider any future projects that involve high density, such as townhouses with Pinnacle Ridge, that we're sure that we have an adequate water supply, that we have the adequate equipment and staff, the fire staff, and I'm of the opinion that it should seriously be considered that there's a fire suppression system during the construction of the projects that involve a high amount of fuel. It could be very serious. Dunbar could have totally gone up in flames. It was that close. There were fire trucks running up and down the side streets, putting out spot fires. And the fire chief has a very strong opinion that it should, and I believe it's in the process, that it will be a future regulation that fire suppression is in place during the construction. So whether that regulation will be implemented should this Pinnacle Ridge go forward, I would ask everyone to seriously consider that as a proposal. Should you accept Pinnacle's suggestions?
part of the recommendation is that the fire chief is going to be consulted on it, and he will be the one that'll dictate what happens
Well,
there.
again, he can say, I recommend, but if there's no regulation to enforce it,
We listen to his recommendations very, very strongly, as three of us are part of the fire
I
trustees.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, motion to adjourn? Oh, okay.
Hello, Bill Cook, 1660 East Road. With the problems with the acoustics in this place, have we looked at, or you looked at some kind of audio dictate, so that when people speak, it can show up on the board so we can follow along by reading?
Ms. Howard?
Through the chair, that is not something that specifically we've looked at in the building. We have looked at some additional acoustic measures and how we can improve sound. The other thing to note is that our YouTube stream does have a closed caption option, so you can, if you're watching the YouTube stream, you can you can read along there. So there's that accessibility option as well.
Do we have it up on this, so while we're here, that we can watch it up on top of here? So we can just kind of read it and go along, because probably about 3/4 we can't hear.
We do have some improvements coming to the sound that we're going to be, the acoustics in here that should improve it incredibly, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh.
My name's Guy Fraser, 2055 East Road. I just want to thank the recent brush cutting along East Road. It's very appreciative. It improves the safety and visibility in the area. I think it's a wonderful touch of leaving the ferns along with that. I'm just wondering, though, why the village staff is not handling the flagging and why the work is being outsourced. Is there a reason for that?
Ms. Howard, I'm not.
Through the chair, I don't have specific details on that, but in terms of village staff, we do only have 5 members of our public works team. So that essentially would require our entire public works team to man that. We have currently 1 member in the dump truck receiving the cuttings, and then if we put 2 or 3 more members out there, they take care of water operation, they take care of roads and parks and all sorts of other things within the village. And I just think that it would be operationally prohibitive to have our entire staff team on site.
Okay, and can I add?
I just wanted to also add, I think as well, that it's a specific piece of machinery that is being used to do that as well on the end of an excavator that we don't have. So.
No, I appreciate that. I'm asking about the flagging.
Okay.
And I'll add, are village work crews trained in flagging? The 5 members that we do have.
Not all of our members have their flagging certification, but I do not know off the top of my head the number. I know some of them do, but not all of them as far as I know.
Okay. My other question is, if something happens, a tree falls on the road, the village staff has to cut it down. Do we have to wait for outsourced flaggers to come and deal with that, or could our staff flag?
Sorry, I don't know the answer to that, not knowing the number of personnel that we have with that certification. That would be something for our operations superintendent. Mm-hmm. So you're welcome to reach out to me or to him, Scott Donaldson. His information is on the village website, and he could answer that. I don't want to presuppose.
But we do have work staff that's certified.
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Okay, motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Carried unanimously. Have a good summer, everyone. Thank you.